Hi there, Chris from TotallyEV, and today we're looking at the Kia e-Niro, an all-electric SUV that boasts up to 280 miles of all-electric range. Now that is available from £33,000 for the Kia e-Niro 3, and the model we have over here, the Kia e-Niro 4 and 4 Plus, can be found for £36,000. Now if you don't need as much mileage, but you do like the design and some of the features that this e-Niro offers, the e-Niro 2 can be found for £29,000, and that offers around 180 miles of range due to a smaller battery pack. Now if you'd like more information about the different trim levels and what they offer, do check out our full written review down in the description below. Down there you'll also find a link to our Instagram, so if you do use that social media platform, it's at TotallyEVnet to give us a follow. So let's see how this all-electric SUV actually performs. Let's first start off and talk about the exterior design of the car. Now I know looks are subjective, but hopefully you'll agree with me to say that the front of the car is quite modern and sci-fi looking. Now that's namely due to the fact that the front grille has been covered up by a plastic enclosure, which helps with aerodynamics and reducing the drag coefficient, and also the fact that it's got some blue adjacent colors all over the front bumper. The same could be said for the tail lights and even the rear bumper as well. They've got this kind of modern-ish look to them. Now at the side, the 17-inch alloy rims do come as standard, and it's great to see. However, the only thing I don't really like about the sound profile is all this plastic trim that stems all the way around the front and rear wing. It also stems around where you enter and exit the vehicle by all four doors. Now you might disagree with me, so I'm very much intrigued to hear your thoughts about these plastic type of look and design of the car, specifically from its side profile. Now transitioning from the exterior futuristic look of the vehicle to the interior cabin, it's safe to say that Kia have done a good job in terms of not only designing and making the interior cabin look premium, but also feel it, from the steering wheel to the center console and even the door frame. The same could be said about the infotainment display, which is not only very responsive and fluid and supports multi-touch input, but also one that supports Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Now the only thing that I have in terms of a complaint here is the scaling of Android Auto. Connected over USB with my Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, the usable display was only 2/3 of its maximum 10.25-inch display, at which point you have a black bar essentially closest to the driver, and it's kind of rendered useless. Something of an oversight potentially from Kia, or something that you could see potentially in a future firmware update. Now before moving on from the infotainment display, it is also worth bearing in mind that you do have an 8-speaker JBL setup in the Kia e-Niro 4 or 4 Plus. This adds around 320 watts of total power, and you've got a physical subwoofer that's located at the back. Now I've got a dedicated review on the audio system that's comprised within the e-Niro, so if you're interested in that, do check it down in the description below. It'll be both on our website and on our YouTube channel, but in a nutshell, I will say it's pretty good. It could have been just a little bit more defined in terms of the mid-range, but on the whole, I think it will be pleasantly fine for most people who are listening to their music. Elsewhere, in terms of practicality, Kia have retained physical buttons not only for the infotainment display via media control buttons and a volume knob, but also with climate controls. It is worth remembering that if you were to adjust the climate controls, they will pop up on the infotainment display, but here there is no sort of lag or slow transition between you adjusting the temperature and it popping up from the display. It's actually very seamless. There is a QI charging pad for a smartphone, so if you have a phone, which is pretty much most modern day smartphones now that enable wireless charging, you can pop your phone over here to charge. Not only is it very conveniently placed, but it's also really large in terms of space, allowing you to basically place any sort of smartphone over here. Now just under that, you've got 2 USB sockets. One of them has been cleverly concealed away from a little latch, and to the side of it you've also got a 12-volt socket. Under all of that, in terms of the dashboard, you've then got a convenient storage space. So let's say if you've got your wallet or purse, or let's say you've got some magazines and tablets, you can place them over here. Now if you don't want to place them there, you've also got some center console storage space, which the center console, which opens up over here, reveals a USB slot, and that's fast charging enabled, so you can place your sunglasses there and let's say a smartphone. And also through here in the middle section of the center console, you've got 2 cup holder spaces, which can be also retracted in order for you to either save on space or make room for larger items. Now, on the note of practicality, the gear selector and the placement of it is just really well thought out, because the gear selector is not only really responsive, the rotary dial is very easy to use, but it also lights up in the evening, making it very easy to know where the gear selector is actually placed. Beside it, you've then got heat and steering wheel warmers, and you've also got the parking brake, which is an e-brake as you might imagine in an EV, and a drive mode selector. As for the steering wheel, there are media control buttons on the left hand side and instrument cluster controls on the right hand side. As for the instrument cluster itself, on the left hand side you've got your mileage and the amount of battery remaining. Just beside it, in terms of the right hand side of the digital dial, you've then got a power and charge indicator, which shows you in terms of regenerative braking how much power you're consuming. In the middle you've got a colorful display which gives you some extra key information, so for example the energy flow, or let's say the mileage you're doing. And on the right hand side you've got a digital speedometer, which also gives you an indication of where the kind of sweet spot is if you're going to go for an economical drive. Now, before moving on from the front of the cabin, there is one other button I want to talk about, and that's the VESS button. Now here it allows you to enable or disable the artificial sound that the car makes to external pedestrians, for example. Now, while I don't have a problem with that, and I actually am very in favor of that happening, because people who might be, let's say, blind, or guide dogs who are traveling across the road might not hear the car, I don't like the fact that Kia have chosen a really weird sci-fi sounding spaceship type of sound. This is not only a little bit weird for people who have heard the car for the first time, but also for people who are sitting inside the cabin. The noise does get a little bit obnoxious after about 40 minutes of sitting in traffic, at which point you might have a headache. So you might be tempted to disable that, but it's just worth bearing in mind that if you do disable that, very much be aware of your surroundings, specifically if you're going an inner city route where people might be either blind or not aware of a car approaching. You will want to have to make sure that you're very much aware of those pedestrians if they're going to be crossing the road. Now, moving on, we've got seat comfort. Now at the back you've got plenty of legroom and headroom. I'm just under 6 foot and I can see myself comfortably sitting here for long distance drives. Now at the front you've got an electronically adjustable driver's seat, although the same couldn't be said about the front passenger seat, which is limited to manual controls only. You can see Kia have done a few cost savings here, and some people might be a little bit bothered about the fact that both of them are not electronically adjustable, specifically given its price tag. But in terms of the actual seat comforts themselves, the seats are pretty firm. Now some people will like that, whilst in my case, when it comes to driving at a long-ish distance, I found that the seats were just a little bit hard on my backside. Of course, you might disagree with me, so again, let me know in the comments below. Now, as for practicality, there is a little compartment over here which reveals an armrest and also 2 cup holders. Weirdly enough, Kia haven't integrated much storage space when it comes to the side compartments, in other words, in terms of the doors. Here you can pretty much fit only a 500 milliliter bottle and nothing else. I would have liked to see the same as it is in the front, where there's a little bit extra storage, allowing you to place, let's say, a wallet or a small tablet. Now, likewise here, I do find it a little bit strange to find no USB slots whatsoever or charging ports that you can access at the back. So for example, if your kids are trying to charge their tablets or smartphones, they'll have to reside to power banks, which is somewhat strange given at the front you've got a large array of different connectivity and USB ports to choose from. The same couldn't be said in the rear seats. Now, as for storage space, you've got 450 litres on the boot, and if you pop down the seats, you've got 1,400 litres. Now, not only is this great in terms of storage space for you to fit in large luggages or mountain bikes without having to take off the wheels, but if you were to reveal the underside of the boot, what you'll see is that there is some space here to store away your cables, and also even the boot lid mechanism, which can be removed and stowed away very conveniently here. Now, something here to note is that most manufacturers don't give you this storage space, so again, Kia have really thought about it really well and come across with a very nice solution. And now we move on to performance, and first off I want to talk about maneuverability and parking. Now the car comes with front and rear parking sensors and also a rear view camera, which allows you to basically make maneuvers a lot easier. The rear view camera is not of a great resolution, so it's just worth bearing that in mind, although it does provide you the key information you're going to need to know before, let's say, hitting an object. As for maneuverability, the actual steering wheel is very easy to use. It's very lightweight and allows for, well, just simple turns. Now this is the case if you are driving, but also when you're going to be doing, let's say, a 3-point turn. So let's say, for example, here I want to do a 3-point turn. Just going to pull up over here, just make sure there's no cars, and let's just do this over here. And what you'll see is that the steering wheel and combined with the gear selector make for very light work. And there I'm using my rear camera sensors, and there you can see a 3-point turn done with relative ease. It's also a good point over here to kind of highlight is that the actual driving comfort is very well done. Now the suspension is a little bit stiff in comparison to some other cars that you might expect, but on the whole the car stays pretty well planted on the ground, and if you're going at speed on country roads, then what you'll find is the car is pretty well planted when you are driving. Now when it comes to driving, the car has 150 kilowatts of usable power. That's equivalent of around 201 brake horsepower. Now the car will launch to 60 miles an hour from a standstill in around 7.4 seconds, and from my tests the car really does perform in that mode. Now you do have to bear in mind that you've got 3 different drive modes to select from. What I like here is that Kia have integrated a pretty customizable way of each of the drive modes, so you can choose between the regenerative braking, the maximum speed that you're going to be getting in each of the drive modes, so each time you do select it, it remembers that, well, previously selected option that you have. Now as we're going to be approaching the motorway here, I'm going to put my foot down from about 20 to around 40. I know there's every zone in London is pretty much a 20 now, so it's pretty slow driving. But what I will say is that the car does really handle well. I was very much surprised with this, and due to the body roll that you might expect with this SUV, as I mentioned before, the car does stay pretty planted. So right now, just going to slow down, and of course there's traffic. I'm at 20, just going to zoom over to 40 and just approach the car at the front here. Now what I will say is that the car does respond really well. The accelerator is very responsive and there's no issues there at all. The same could go for the brake pedal. It's very soft and yet easy to press, and therefore means for light work when you're approaching, let's say, a standstill in traffic. As we're on the motorway, and although we are moving at pretty snail pace, it is worth knowing that there is cruise control and also lane keep assist. Now both of these technologies can be disabled pretty easily through the instrument cluster or through the infotainment system. They do add a decent level of, let's say, security and safety, and also on top of that you've also got a rear cross traffic alert, which allows you to, well, when you're pulling out in a, let's say, a junction and you're reversing and you have not noticed a car coming from behind, then it will say, hey, watch out, there's a car coming out. So just protects you from making an accident. Now another thing worth knowing about is actual cabin noise, and here the car is actually very silent and well insulated. There is very little road noise that occurs from the 7-inch alloys, and even in terms of the A-pillars, in terms of deflecting wind, there's very little of it. It's actually the only noisy part of it is what I mentioned before, the VESS button, which kind of occurs at lower speed. So for example, like now, that's the only thing that you'll really come across in terms of this noisy cabin in comparison to its competitors. So for example, let's say the MG ZS EV, the Kia e-Niro does a great job at insulating you from exterior noise, like you might have heard over there from that motorbike. Now the car's biggest selling point is is battery, and that's because its 64 kilowatt hour battery delivers around 280 miles of range. Now that is obviously in its best scenario. Let's say if you're going to be running at the eco mode and driving very comfortably, but yet still, even if you drive pretty aggressively, you should expect around 260 miles in mixed driving conditions, therefore inner city driving and when you go out on the motorway. And here is actually where it really excels, because its battery life, so to speak, is really impressive. And in comparison to, again, some of its competitors, namely some of its cheaper competitors, the Kia e-Niro really does stand out. And as to recharge it, it's pretty simple. You've got a Type 2 and CSS port. Now the latter will recharge to 80% in around an hour, whilst the Type 2 port on a slower 7 kilowatt charge will take around 9.5 hours. That's due to its large battery. Now if you do have the 4 Plus, in other words the e-Niro 4 Plus, which accepts a 3-phase charger and 11 kilowatts instead, then that will take around 7.5 hours to around 80%. Now if you don't have access to any of those chargers, a 3-pin wall socket will take over 29 hours. Again, this is due to the size of the battery, so it's to be expected, but something you should be mindful about if you intend to plug in it at home. Now finally, I do also want to mention the regenerative braking methods. Now these are accessed via the flappy paddles that are found on the steering wheel. If you were to go on the right hand side and shift up, so to speak, it will reduce the regenerative braking level, whilst if you shift down, in other words the left trigger, then it will make it even harsher. Now what I will say is that by default it does come with the maximum amount, and personally I really love that. It means that it recoups as much energy back into the battery pack as possible and allows you to have a kind of one pedal approach, which is just great to see. Now what I find is that if you are going to be driving in inner city routes, the only thing to be mindful about is when it comes to a complete and utter stop. So the difference between you lifting your foot off the accelerator and then for you having to put your foot on the brake to come and firmly stop, it does feel slightly weird making that transition. So therefore you'll just have to kind of get trained and used to it when you're coming to the Kia e-Niro. And this all leads me on to my verdict. What do I make about the Kia e-Niro, specifically the £36,000 trim that we've got here? Well, quite frankly, there's very little to dislike about it. It does have slightly harder seats and has a whooshing sound at the front, which could be changed in terms of its frequency range, and its Android Auto integration could be a little bit better thought out. But other than that, the car does really tick a lot of boxes and will appeal to a lot of consumers. Specifically, its all-electric range, which is around 260 to 280 miles, and its performance traits in terms of 0 to 60 in 7.2 seconds and a max speed of around 100 miles an hour will definitely be more than enough for your average consumer. As such, the Kia e-Niro gets TotallyEV's Best Buy award because there's really no other car that can really compete with it at its price range. Now let us know in the comments below what you make of the Kia e-Niro. If you own it, have driven it, or indeed have one of its competitors, we'd be very much intrigued to hear your thoughts. If you do like this type of video, make sure you give it a like, subscribe to see more, and of course favourite and share, as it always helps the channel grow. I've been Chris from TotallyEV. Take care and bye-bye.